How did you find out your significant other was cheating on you? She became more and more distant. Not just that, but also indifferent. She just stopped caring and it showed. I caught her because she claimed she was working OT, but her pay never reflected it. One day I got out of work early after a machine broke down in the department. I didn't tell her. When I came home, I caught her red-handed with someone in our bed. My guitar at home was tuned to drop D and there were Smoker's Choice cigarette butts in my ashtray. I had her phone to take a cute photo of our cat. Text notification popped up, "I can't wait to make love to you, turtle." My friend told me that she tried to fuck him. He drove past me when he was supposed to be out of town overnight for work. He told me he is at church. Then I heard a voice asking in the background, "Babe, why are you hiding in the bathroom?" He still had the guts to deny it. When my STD test came back and the doctor said, verbatim, "Well, your girlfriend is lying to you." Got chlamydia. I knew I didn't mess around, and my ex before her tested negative, so there wasn't many options left. 1 + 1 = 2. I had a feeling for a while, it was always denied of course directly and through a massive amount of gaslighting. Ultimately, the other woman was also married and her husband called me at work, found me via LinkedIn. Took everything I had to walk to my car to cry in private. She didn't hide it very well. I caught her at a bar the first time, immediately began sleeping in separate rooms. Then during a cancer scare for me, she said she was going to a friend's house. I did the old 69 on the phone, and a dude answered the phone. She asked for separation on a Wednesday, called on a Friday to ask for her stuff. I said sure, I need you to sign some papers, divorce papers. The other woman knocked on my front door and asked me to take my kid and get out so that the two of them could be together and be happy. I told her she could have him, but they'd have to go because technically I owned the house. I then told him he was free to go. He did not go, sadly. She'd been dropped off by her ex who she'd cheated on with my ex-husband. That was quite awkward. Her Facebook profile picture had his reflection taking the photo. He had told me he was away for a weekend with his friends. Edit, to confirm she was a school friend so I had her on Facebook. Her profile picture was in front of a mirror. We had numerous mutual friends. They all sent me the picture. I had my suspicions for a few months. As a sports writer for a daily newspaper, I was assigned to cover high school football games across the region. I happened to be working a game in my hometown one Friday night. My then wife took her turn as a band booster mom working the concession stand at that same game. Because my schedule was so random, she had no clue I was there that night. Sitting in the press box keeping stats for my story, I used binoculars to better see the game. I spotted my wife in the visitor's side concession stand. Standing next to her was a local cop. When I saw them kiss, I knew. We eventually divorced. The cop divorced his wife of more than 30 years in order to marry my ex. They were married about a year, then divorced. I've remarried and will celebrate my 9th wedding anniversary in May. Found single bottle cap on the stairs. I didn't drop it there. I don't drink upstairs and I hadn't had a drink all week. I CSI'd the crap out of that little piece of evidence. She was supposed to be on a business trip, but had been home while I was at work. She tried making moves on one of my closest friends. Didn't think he would tell me for some reason. The way he smiled when texting his female friend, but as soon as I spoke to him all light and happiness disappeared from his eyes. She missed our 10th anniversary to watch a movie with a guy she'd been seeing for 3 weeks, and his wife. She accused me of cheating out of the blue. Made me jump through crazy hoops to prove myself, but believed me. Everything settled. 6 months later she did it again. It took 2 more of these to see the cycle. Simple sleuthery led to the admitted truth that every time I was accused, she was the one cheating. My stay-at-home wife at the time got pregnant despite we hadn't had sex for a while and I had a vasectomy. She tried to hide her pregnancy under the guise of weight gain but the medical statements in the mail gave away the purpose of her doctor visits. Her roommate told me lol. Long dark hair in my shower. I'm blonde. He kept a detailed journal on his bedside. Loudly crying. My best friend told me. It was with her. I was gone for a military school for 3 weeks. I came back and hung out with our neighbors and turns out she had sex with a guy in their house when they had a little get-together. Worst part, for me, was that the neighbors told me they noticed her and the guy were gone for an extended period of time while they were watching our then 4-year-old son. I found out about 5 hours before her scheduled flight to Alaska, where the military was sending me. I had about a week between the school and the move where we all hung out like nothing happened. That psychopath actually introduced me to him and I shook his hand, obviously before they told me. I still cringe to this day. Therapy is necessary. Back when cell phones had limited minutes, I got notified that we were over our limit. Checked the last bill and nothing but her and her boss talking at all hours of the day. Then she stupidly left her email open on my computer and I got to read how he enjoyed touching her boobs a lot. Caught her at an internet cafe messaging someone on an adult dating site. Lol, best thing I could have done. His Skype convo came up while I was reading a manga on his PC. I got the beautiful opportunity of reading all about how terrible I was. My heart broke. I have a really sensitive nose. I smelled her in his bed. This was 7 or so years ago now. He was in the military, so we were long distance. The woman he was cheating on me with for like 6 months Facebook messaged me one day telling me everything, not because she suddenly felt guilty, but because she was pissed he cheated on her and gave her chlamydia. They ended up getting back together, got married and had a kid like a year later, but shockingly that didn't work out and now they're divorced. Woman shrugging. He only wore cologne for special events. I had just cleaned our bathroom cabinets and organized everything. A few days later, I noticed his cologne bottle had slightly moved. Dug out his clothes from the previous night and found makeup all over his shirt's shoulder. I didn't wear that kind of makeup. The cologne bottle never lies. He called me to tell me he was at his guy friend's house. Okay, love, you have fun. 2 seconds later my phone rings again and I can hear him and a woman laughing at how easy that was. A mutual friend of ours made a throwaway account to leave us, my ex and I, cryptic messages about it. He would leave me messages hinting at what had happened and how I shouldn't trust my boyfriend at the time, while also sending my ex messages about confession. It was weird, but it worked and my ex eventually told me everything. He left his phone open to someone named Blocked texting him about her weird sunburn from her swimsuit straps. Funny thing is, I wouldn't have given it a second thought if the contact name in the phone was anything normal. So and so from work. Whatever, not a second thought. But titling a contact Blocked, who clearly isn't blocked since they're messaging you, is just a big red flag. Our 14-year-old daughter went through his phone and caught him, so yeah, that was cute. Caught her with her hand down her pants talking to her boss on the phone. Broke up with this guy because I just wasn't in love anymore. A few weeks later, I was still a moping mess because of how guilty I felt. He did everything to make me feel guilty, too, and a mutual friend hated shaying me like this, so he told me. The guy had cheated on me a few times, with a close friend of mine, a few months ago. Turns out a lot of my friends had known for months without telling me. When I called the woman who never got up before noon at around 9 a.m. and she wasn't at home. The threesomes stopped but she kept going out with that girl. She pissed off one of her girlfriends. Well, the guy she was cheating with decided that he wanted her all to himself, so he found me and told me about it. He bragged about it to a mutual friend thinking she wouldn't tell me. I was early picking him up from work and saw the other woman dropping him off. They made out for a minute before he ran inside. He came out a few minutes later, having changed into his work shirt, and immediately started complaining about his co-workers. I suspected him of having a thing for my friend, but he always gaslit me into thinking I was just insecure and paranoid. He had his phone connected to the Bluetooth in our shared vehicle. A text from my friend popped up and before he could stop me, I pressed read. Text message said, "I love you. Can't wait for tomorrow." That day ended a 7-year relationship. Not cheating, per se, but I found out later that she met someone while we were dating. After a really intense 6-month relationship, she became a raging bitch practically overnight, saying the meanest thing imaginable. It was her way of getting me to break things off. Less than a year later she popped up on my Facebook feed in the Memories section and I saw that she was married. That kind of fucked with my head, honestly, so I did a little digging. She was on a website about relationship advice, I knew her username, she told me earlier, and I started looking through some of her answers. Sure enough, one of her answers told a story about how she met her current husband and it lined up to when we're dating. My husband of 15 years, with no warning, came up to me in the kitchen and told me, "I love you but I'm not in love with you anymore," and as I was trying to process that bombshell, informed me he was going to leave to hang out with his friends. 2 days later, after much denial, he told me he may have kissed someone else. He was in a full-blown affair. I kicked him out, and it completely blew apart my and our children's lives. That was 10 months ago. I will never forget the devastation and pain of that moment. Technically wasn't my significant other when I found out, but time frames. On a college break visit just before we broke up, she wanted me to finish inside her as she was on birth control, something she was very opposed to before, and this was the first I'd heard of it. We did not get intimate that night due to red flags, and a week later we split. In the process of unfollowing her on Tumblr and whatnot a week later, I saw a post about a recent miscarriage, and soon after she and her new man blocked me on everything. It was an abusive relationship, so it was definitely a bullet dodged. He was still logged into Insta on my phone browser and I saw all their messages. My ex-phone had Pizza Hut texting him at 2 a.m. asking if he was up. He was gone for weeks at a time and wouldn't answer my texts or calls. When I asked about it, he acted like I was being crazy and clingy by wanting to know where he was all the time. I eventually moved out while he was gone, and it was almost a month before he noticed and contacted me asking where I was. His ex was on his phone and sent a streaks picture on Snapchat of her sitting on his lap with his arms around her. He got more and more distant, never wanted sex, and wouldn't put any effort into hanging out with my family or being sociable at my brother's wedding, etc. I thought it was just a rough patch. I would break down crying and ask him if he still loved me, was still attracted to me. He always assured me he did, and that it was just his depression. After like 2 years of this, he finally told me that he was in love with a girl at his work. I wasted almost 8 years of my life on him. Looking back, I shouldn't have put up with him neglecting me for so long, but hindsight is 20/20, and I wanted to believe that the rough patch would end, the relationship would turn around, and I could have my boyfriend back.